Hey, everybody. Welcome to yet another episode of the Pull Up Trade Podcast, co hosted by myself, Samson Folk, and joined, of course, co hosted on the other side by Trevon Heath, the trade that pulls up. We are here in full draft formation, I think.
Yeah.
After we did the live episode, and yes, the Raptors dropped to ninth, and yes, per Doug Smith's reporting, they were one number away from number one and one number away from number two. But you know what? All's fair in Ernst and Young. It is what it is, man.
Yeah.
Trey, how you doing? A couple days away from our heartbreak. We were very dramatic
We
on
were.
the.
I think we're dramatic men in general, though, to be honest.
That's true. I agree with
Regardless
that.
of what was going to happen, that reaction, good or bad, probably was going to. I'm good. Like, Masai said it best. Like, number nine's a lucky number for the Raptors.
Mm.
Every single time they've picked, it's created Hall of Fame production for this franchise. So, what's a fourth time, to be honest?
So I guess the extension obviously is that Jakob Poeltl is turned into Kawhi.
Why let it exactly?
Yeah, okay.
And then you got him
So
back too. Oh man.
yeah. Well, I mean, so anyway, I know you weren't a fan of that trade.
Yeah.
I know damn well. But so for people who don't know, although most people listening will, the ninth pick this is the fourth time the Raptors will be choosing at number 9, provided they don't trade it up or back or anything like that. They selected for the first time Tracy McGrady, pretty fantastic player, although we did not get to see that with the Raptors
Yeah.
necessarily. Then DeMar DeRozan, then Jakob Poeltl. These are all very at like the floor of this pick is quite good. They've
Mhm.
really knocked out of the park. And when we look at perhaps like DeMar DeRozan, Tracy McGrady, but like Tracy Hall of Fame, DeMar I believe will end up in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
He'll end up being like a top 15 scorer by the time he's hangs him up. And Jakob is obviously a very strong center. In this podcast, and we have lots of podcasts to go. We have a month and a half before we get there. That's how many episodes, Pulp Trade? That's like 6 episodes.
6, yeah.
We've already talked probably about like 12 prospects,
Mhm.
maybe 12, 15. And we have to expand it now because the Raptors fell. But so on the docket for today, the ever rising, very popular highlight scout of Carter Bryant out of Arizona, Egor Demin. I learned that it's Yegor. That's how they were saying
Diego.
on Brigham Young's broadcast. So Yegor, and I was like wondering before I started looking, like, is this demon? Like, is because that's everyone's he's a demon. I thought, wow, he would get some buzz off of that, and then also Nolan Traore, and these are three very unique prospects.
Yes.
All of them have holes in their games, but all of them represent, I think, a lot of. I would say probably like a lot of upside in certain respects. So, Trey, I guess like, do you have an order of where those guys rank in your favorites before we dig into, I guess, Carter first?
Yeah, I would say Traore, Carter, and then Demin for sure.
Yeah, Demon is huge. We'll
Mhm.
talk about him more at the back end, but there is like he controls him. We'll leave it for the back end, but I think for me, it's probably Carter, Traore, Demon. Now, I
Ooh.
am in on Carter Bryant. Like, I'm really big in on him. And Traore I also really like. I think he's the best point guard. I like him better than Jakku. I like him better than Fears. I think he's the best point guard outside of Harper in the draft. And I obviously like him more than Demon.
Yeah.
So we have some guys to talk about. I will start out with Carter Bryant. So
Okay.
we'll do the numbers quickly, just so everybody is aware of them. So Carter Bryant, he comes in at like he's between 215, 225. He measured at like there's been reports of fluctuating, but at the draft, he comes in at 215 pounds. 6'11.75 wingspan, very close to 7 feet, 8'10" standing reach. He's a big boy. He's like 6'8". He's quite large.
Mhm.
He is uber athletic. He's not just a 2 foot jump big mover. He's a coordinated, athletic, adaptable mover. He jumps off of both feet. He's tremendously skilled. And I think after watching the mechanics, and I've watched every single jump shot he made this past season, I think he'll be one of the best shooters in the draft. Despite only having 3 attempts per game at Arizona, despite only scoring, and here's the
This is
kicker,
sizzling.
6.5 points per game, I think that Carter Bryant will be one of the best shooters coming out of this draft. Maybe not
Wow.
immediately, but I
Mhm.
believe by year 4, that will be like a real thing. So the stats: 6.5 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 1 block, 46, 37, 69, splits for 59% true shooting. He only played 19 minutes per game. So the stock numbers are insane for less than half the
Yeah.
game. The rest of this stuff is whatever. Carter Bryant, tell me what you think.
How do I follow up? I've never seen you so excited about a prospect. This is insane. Okay.
Mm.
I I like Carter Bryant. I think it's funny because
Yeah, temper me, temper me.
um I've been asking for the Raptors like to address like their size at the wing all season because they've been bullied by teams, especially like the really good playoff teams. They have that really big defender that can still move and mobilize around the court, but allows them to
Hmm.
play with size and play with length. You see a team like OKC, one of the best defenses we've seen in the last 5 years. You still can't stop Aaron Gordon because he's a larger man than the rest of the people on the court. OG Anunoby, the same thing. Even if you consider him to be limited in certain aspects, like his size and his strength allows him to create in the
Yep.
playoffs and become a higher. I hate the word playoff riser, but his offense is far more valuable in that context because the playoffs are more physical.
Big boys get to do things easier. They
Yeah,
just
it's
do.
it's a fact. And Carter Bryant's one of those guys. Like he does all the simple things at a really high rate. And I probably the question for me is like, are you letting go of upside for like for a particular archetype? But like as a player, I think his defense is really, really good. At the point of attack, he's able to utilize his size and length to cover really good ground and then also keep the ball handler from the rim. He's able once he puts his hands on you, especially like some of those smaller guards in college,
Hmm.
they have a really hard time getting to the rim. He fights through screens well. He operates well as a low man. He got tons of blocks as a low man because of his athleticism and coordination. And I think his athleticism pops both horizontally and vertically,
Yeah.
which which is the sign of a really good defender. Like OG Anunoby, for example, can operate as a big because of his leaping ability. Whereas like some guys, like a Mikal Bridges, very good athlete horizontally, and that's why he defends usually smaller guards. Um, I think there's flashes offensively, like decision making. Although his assist numbers aren't the greatest, like he makes really good decisions. He moves the ball fairly well, and like as a play finisher, he was able to score at the rim really well, hit his threes at a really high clip for a college player, and you see that the feel is there. Although like his cutting was fairly limited from the things that I've watched, he able to actually get into space, score the basketball really well, and with a more open floor, like those cutting opportunities will be more apparent, and he'll be able to score in those like functionalities too. I think the holes are obviously limited stuff as a creator. No ISO possessions at
Yeah.
all in his time at Arizona. There were some flashes of his shot within the mid range, but most of his drives are him attacking off of closeouts. So you're drafting someone who's operating in a very specific role in a specific lane. That could be important. It is important, but
Hmm.
the upside of potentially getting a high level starter or scorer, I'm unsure if that's there.
It's so what you say about like no isolation. It's true.
Yeah.
Synergy does not have him logged as having a single isolation possession. When you look at even like in some of the moves that preempt his pull up, even like his hezzy or his in and out dribble, these are they look very elementary. Like
Mhm.
it is
Yeah.
not an expanded part of his game. It's and cutting, like he does cut a decent amount of time. It represents a decent chunk of his scoring, but it's still not that much
Yeah.
relative to what like a mover and an athlete with his capabilities should be doing. I think that he doesn't necessarily recognize all the times when he should be cutting. Arizona runs like they have some automatics they run for him out of the corner, which is like if a team is playing ice pick and roll defense against Arizona, their big drops out of it, you pop the pass over top because then you're playing 4-on-3, and they'll
Mhm.
have one of the guards set like a pin in basically going. Well, it's basically like a screen just for him to come corner catch a lob. Like he has some scripted actions that he's going to cut out of, but as far as like interpretive play, I think there's so much meat on the bone for him, considering the type of athlete that
Yeah.
he is. That there's just a lot he can do there. Defensively too, I don't I don't know, like I don't think his positioning is incredibly strong or anything like that. I think he still like quite often makes mistakes on defense. He's young, he's a freshman.
Yeah.
I just his athleticism, turn over both like hips, take the
Mhm.
big step to get back into the lane, go meet guys at the rim, bigs, smalls, wings,
Yeah.
good luck trying to win the aerial battle with him. He comes away as the champ of that
Mhm.
matchup quite often, and the steals are also there too because he has the functionality of like the foot speed and like all that kind of stuff of like a two, but he's going to be able to play in spaces with the size of quite a large three or even a small four. And so he's eating up gobs of space on the court. And obviously at the collegiate level, he closes space extremely fast. Some of those, like on the one hand, his offense should be able to translate much better than
Mhm.
just 6.5 points we're seeing. But his defense there might be a few more holes in it at the NBA level. He might be a little bit more picked on for,
Yeah.
not being able to identify things. But on the whole, I think because I do believe he'll end up, this is a hot take, I understand, but I do believe he'll end up being one of the best shooters in the draft. That for me, with his athleticism, makes him
Mhm.
just like immediately, he could go top 10 for me, which is why the Raptors could take him. And I would be
Yeah.
like, hell yes, let's see what happens. Even though there is, Scotty, Ingram, Mobo, whoever happens like at the back end, like in the second round. But I just, I think he would, especially like the Raptors run a ton of offense where they need to weaponize guys off ball. They've
Mhm.
brought in Ingram to help do some of the on ball stuff.
Yep.
I think it would be such a perfect opportunity for Carter Bryant because he gets to eat in all of the easy off ball stuff. He'd be willing to move. I think he's going to be a dynamite shooter. Guys like Scotty, he still wants on ball possessions. He's going to get them.
Mhm.
Brandon definitely is going to get them.
Yeah.
Quickley definitely is going to get them. Carter could be brought along quite slowly and just grind in the summers and be like a guy who pops year three, the big wing year three season. And I
Mhm.
think he could really like one of those guys who scores like 10 points per game despite scoring six in their rookie year of college, right? Just there's
Yeah.
opportunity there. I like him a lot, dude. I
Yeah.
mean, that's evident.
You're beaming. Nah, I definitely see that. I think there's definitely some that you there's more stuff that you'll see in probably the NBA than you'll see on like a more closed floor in college. Like he should be able to attack a lot of his closeouts or off the catch and like utilize his strength because he was one of the, like the bigger wings in the
Yep.
draft and for his age probably will get better as he ages as well, and that will help probably tip the scale in terms of like some of the skills that he has and how he'll be able to stay on the floor.
I'll
While
just
I don't
say
think
to really
uh,
support your point there, he took, I think like he has 87 spot up possessions, which
yeah,
closeout attacks come out of spot up possessions typically. 87 shots, 82 of them were from three. He's
yeah,
not threatening downhill off of closeouts.
yeah, exactly. And I do think he is going to be a really good shooter. And that's probably like these wings usually find like once every few years that kind of fit like the box of actually being able to score and defend at a really high level. It's why you can trade OG Anunoby for two really good players because they're very rare type guys. Um, I actually did like some of the mid range stuff. They ran a lot of actions where he would catch and pop. He would pop
Yep.
around the free throw line extended, and he was able to score out of those looks, which bodes well to his touch as well.
Zone
So
busters as well, flashing middle.
exactly. So like he did some of that stuff, and that's probably where the upside stuff comes in, because like even a guy like Aaron Gordon was able to extend his range to some degree and still offer a little bit of creation in between, and that's where he's probably going to need to get towards. It's it's a fine pick at 9. You just have to accept that it's a pick to support this current core of Ingram and Scotty, and you're not shooting for the stars in terms of like this guy is going to be an all-star.
His handle is a long ways away.
Yeah.
And you just how you could be an all-star without a handle or some freakish defensive instincts, I don't know, right? It would
Mhm.
be really tough. There are a
Yeah.
lot of wings, like Michael Porter Jr. will never be an all-star. And he shoots the hell out of the basketball.
Yeah.
But he just, and obviously his back injuries over his career has
Mhm.
sapped a lot of what might have been good elsewhere. OG Anunoby will never be an all-star despite being so good. But like handle limitations, they limit, as we well know, like the Raptors star, who is an all-star, has handle limitations and it affects everything he does. What I think is really, for the final note on Carter here, what I think is really important is that because the Raptors have been talking to guys like Queen, they've talked to, CMB, they've talked to Fears, they've been talking to guys. They get more access than we do, obviously. They get to talk to these guys. They can run Carter through some like bring him in and run him through some like small side games and see how he reads things. Introduce like a new play type to him and see
Mhm.
how quickly he figures it out. Because so much of like if you bring up Aaron Gordon, another incredibly athletic Arizona forward,
Mhm.
his ability to read and use his motion and his willingness to go up against contact at the rim are all only valuable because he makes those reads.
Mhm.
And it's harder if you introduce him to new like concepts and he picks them up quickly, then I think that would be an incredible indicator for what he can do at the next level. As you mentioned, we're not going to talk about it a lot because there's not a lot of volume here, but there's some really strong passing reads on his tape as well.
Yeah.
So
There's.
the maybe you get some indication about like, are you a workhorse? Does that mean the handle can come around year 4, something like that? Year 3, it becomes something that he gets better at. Maybe that's on the table. Are you a guy who picks things up quickly? Are you mapping the court pretty well? Do you know where you're going to step into to threaten things? I'm covering the Pacers right now, and the Pacers are probably the best team in the NBA currently, given their talent level, at positioning players on the floor and having their players move and support each other out of it. It's an important factor of beating
Mhm.
game plans. That kind of stuff that could really sell the Raptors because like Kevin Knox is a guy, right? It's like
Yeah.
everything looked the way it was supposed to, and it just didn't happen because you just couldn't read the game. Matherin on the Pacers, supremely skilled, very physical, comfortable, athletic, does not read the floor well enough, has these big struggles to implement himself. That interview and the workouts might loom really large for Carter Bryant. At least that's my takeaway. But the stuff on tape, although sparse, is incredible.
Yeah.
Like yeah, he's got it.
That's
Uh,
that's good. I like it.
Next up is of course Nolan Traore. However, I do want to revisit something quickly, just to keep us on. we we have like the podcast is a living analysis of ours, right? Like we can update it as we see fit. We started this at the back end of February talking
Yeah.
about this. We're months away from that now. When I got it, I'll say quickly, as I got introduced to Fears, I was like, there's a lot of stuff that pops. The more I watched the Fears, I
Okay.
was like, the doubts started creeping in, which is why I think Traore is my favorite guard outside, my favorite point guard outside of Harper. And I think I'm out. I think I'm out
Wow.
of years now.
Okay.
If he's there at 9, there's enough other guys who I like, who I think would probably be there. Guys like Carter, guys
Mhm.
like CMB. If both those guys go before 9, that's crazy, I
Yeah.
think. So
If
I
you
I would not want
That's
Fears.
crazy. So if you like that many guys, then you're comfortable with like a trade back. Then I would assume.
Yeah, well, I mean, those are so hard because it's like you
Yeah.
have to gauge the temperature of the whole league, and
Yeah.
some people have successfully done it, of course. Like the Celtics going back from 1 to 3 is like, well, we only have to know what two teams are going to do.
Yeah.
But you go back from 9 to 15, it's like, I don't know how the hell to
Yeah.
navigate that. But there's guys, I know we've talked about them before. We both really love them. Yaxel.
Mm-hmm.
There's like, there was the famous one, right? Where it was, during the Tari Eason and Jeremy Sohan draft. It was like, why would I draft Sohan in the lottery when I can get Tari Eason way later? And Tari
Yeah.
Eason became, a better player,
Yeah.
at least so far. But yeah, updating the Fierce take from my end. Where are you on Fierce? Still
I
pretty high?
I I haven't changed. Like the combine numbers look good for me. He has the requisite length where like his finishing I think will improve. I like the flaws that he does have like the finishing at the rim obviously is concerning. He you for a point guard you need to be able to finish at a really high clip. I think I also consider like the context he was in. Like Oklahoma had no business making the tournament, and he still was able to generate great offense in within that context. So it should expand on a better NBA floor. Whether he's a fit for the Raptors, though, I do have concerns because I think he will need ball screens and tons of it to really operate on the floor and do that. And that's not what the Raptors do.
His biggest thing was pick and roll possessions, which
Yeah.
he created great offense, and a credit to him because it's not like Oklahoma was incredibly talented,
Hmm.
but he created great offense with ball screens. Also, I will update as well. The Maluach agility numbers came in because I know this. I knew this was a back and forth between at least myself and some of the commenters was about his foot speed. My contention was that Maluach, once he gathers his feet and gets to start taking those big steps, then he covers a lot of ground, but that his foot speed was rather slow. He tested basically the exact same as the man they called an ogre, Donovan Clingan.
Yeah.
Donovan Clingan, they said this guy was slow as hell, and Malwatch had the same agility time. Now, you could start doing the thing where you're like, he's tanking the combine to get to the Raptors. He's
Please
got
no.
maybe something like that. But the testing, Malwatch, because I know that Raptors fans are obviously very excited about him. I see his name mentioned all the time. Malwatch, this podcast, I think, as you said, it's like you said, can't miss. He's going to be an NBA player. He's going to be an
Yeah.
NBA level big. The question just is like at 9, I don't know. Is he my favorite at 9? No, but we will do deeper dives on these guys. I think
Agreed.
it will merit revisiting Malwatch and
Hmm.
Fears in the future. Now, Nolan Traore. I led for Carter Bryant. You lead for Nolan because this is the ones you suggested. You are the French whisperer. You plucked Bilal from pick 43 and placed him at 7. The pull-up tray stamp, dude.
This changed his life, made him a lottery pick, moved the whole league.
Oh wait,
Traore,
actually, wait. I'll
yeah,
give the numbers quick. So he's born May. He's 18. May 28th, 2006. He turns 19 right away. I think that's how
mhm,
the numbers work.
yeah,
He's French. He is 6'5", 175 pounds. I think he looks a little bit thicker than that. Quite frankly, I don't know when this measurement came in. He hasn't been measured. He's not at the combine, so
yeah.
we
The
don't get this
last
stuff.
it would probably be Hoop Summit, and he would be 17 at the time.
Yeah, he looks a
Yeah,
lot thicker than 175 to me, but
yeah,
he does look like a 6'5". I don't think he's bigger than 6'5". Like even
yeah,
if that might be a juice number at the time, that may now be true. But
yeah.
he plays for San Quentin, which is the French league is a good league.
Hmm.
He's playing better. He's playing against better players than college athletes are.
Agreed.
His stats this season: 10.9 points per game, 1.7 rebounds, 5.1 assists, zero point 0.7 steals, 2.5 turnovers. The shot making is a big rub against him. 37.4 field goal percentage, 29.6 3-point percentage. Uh, there we go. That's kind of what we're looking at.
Yeah. He Traore is a player that I'm like very high on, and what probably one of the reasons why I wouldn't trade back. Like in terms of thought of trading back, it's really hard to feel as though like you're this Nostradamus that you can game the system and get better players later in the draft. Like the Raptors have attempted to already do this and it failed miserably. It didn't work out. obviously. But like Traore, I would take at 9. I think in terms of like operating pick and roll ball
Yep.
handling situations, he is excellent at that. I think his burst is probably second to Fierce in terms of those situations, but he's above average athlete. He gets to the rim fairly well. He can
Yep.
change speeds and do that. And I think what was the most impressive of his tape is that he takes care of the basketball in a men's league.
Yes.
And
That's a huge bonus.
yeah, it's typically when you see guys in those situations, they're losing on strength to grown men. They're sometimes losing on sometimes athleticism too. And he popped out as being overly athletic. And while not having the strength, he was still able to muscle and weave his way to the rim and also just make really good decisions with the basketball. So that should hold up in the NBA. Um, the shot making is going to be the swing skill for him. Like it's improved over the last like few weeks as I've watched, and that's where he's looked like, hey, this guy could be like a top 5 pick with the level when his shot is actually falling, because he's able to get into the middle of the floor nearly every single possession, and he draws to consistently when he's going to the rim, which is like huge. It's one of the largest indicators like for a
Yep.
guard and whether they're going to have success. Like Emmanuel Quickly, the reason why you trade for Brandon Ingram is that he struggled getting to the middle, one because of strength, another because of burst, and then like the floater didn't obviously work out in the way that we wanted. But if you're able to get in the middle of the floor, finish, and also make decisions out of playmaking, making playmaking decisions out of those spots, you become dangerous, and that's how you see teams overload on you, and that makes everything easier on the court for every other player on the floor. And like Traore does that, which is a really really good sign. The finishing isn't where you want it to be. And I attribute that to him playing against grown men and like having a strength deficiency, but he gets to the rim fairly well and doesn't necessarily shy away from contact, which is really, really good to see. I think I'm a believer in the shot, and I think it can get good. He creates and gets to his spots fairly well, and I think that is a harder skill to actually gauge for and whether that can happen. If that holds up in the NBA, I think he'll be able to hit enough shots where he can be an impact player, and he could be a player at like 9, where in a redraft he's a top 5 pick because he does the hard things really really well.
There's a so yeah, as you point out, huge thing here is he shot like 33% on a large diet of floaters.
Yeah.
And he also shot like 27% on his pull-up threes. He shot 40% on catch and shoot threes for what I'm also up his jumper up top is pretty clean to me. Down low, I think like there's probably an NBA team helps him sort that out.
Mm-hmm.
But contending, he shot 60% at the rim, and contending with those professional bigs, and the fact that like we see it when NBA players go overseas, it's like it's more physical.
Mm-hmm.
It's like certain things are harder to do at the FIBA level than they are at the NBA level. You
Yeah.
have to play with more control because this it's just less rewarding to play wild. It's more rewarding to play composed and
Mm-hmm.
conservative, and that is where Traore definitely, like the fact that he gets so many pick and roll possessions, the fact that San Quentin does play like a professional style offense, you get to see him in these tough positions against grown men, and you do see that 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. You do see that he can create looks out of this kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a point guard, I think he's quite a strong prospect, and I think he has the size to be a good size point guard. I believe in the shot going forward. It's just like 37% is really tough from the
Yeah.
field. However, in a bigger floor, kind of working to control the middle of the floor, which I think he'll be able to someday, do you start to look at like he can turn some of those floaters at the, international competition into more layups,
Yeah.
and also playing with maybe some bigs who provide a guy like Jakob Pertl, for example. Does his repertoire as a pocket passer and like a pace controller help him there? That kind
Mm-hmm.
of stuff, it's a pretty big deal. Um, it's we'll see, man. Like I like him quite a bit. It's shot making looms large though, which happens a lot of the time with guys from overseas. It's like you have to admit to yourself, like, who faces better defenses, Traore or Fears?
Yeah.
It's like, well, Traore does. But you also have to be like, well, Fears is much more explosive. Like Traore, I like it, but it's second rate to Fears.
Mhm.
And so who's going to punch a gap? Probably Fears. But who's going to create a gap at the NBA level? Traore maybe will be better at setting it up. It's you never know. And also Fears ostensibly is like a better shooter by the numbers
Yeah.
too. It's just you have to start going like head to head with some of this stuff too. But Traore I like a lot. Like
Yeah. And he fits the Raptors style of play because he'll run tons of get actions off the ball,
yes, he will.
weave his way downhill, and the Raptors do that tons. Like RJ Barrett makes a living off of doing that stuff.
Hmm.
He can both be your pick and roll ball handler and operate off the ball, especially if the shot is actually falling, be, because the Raptors style is very European in the way that they approach things, and so the obvious like fit is there offensively, and I think his feel is there as well in terms of being able to like get into actual space, and his pacing. His pacing is very strong. I think it's on par with Dylan Harper's, honestly, with getting to the floor, operating as the pick and roll ball handler, and then although a lot of those shots do end up as floaters, he is still putting pressure and taxing the defense and having to wait on him handling the ball all the time, which is really hard for point guards, especially at the NBA level, to slow themselves down in
Yep.
order to get your big man going downhill, have the defense worry about that 2-on-1 and make
Yeah.
plays from there. And like I could see him like next year, like beating out Jamal for minutes and working with Jakob Berto like on the bench and on a bench lineup and doing well.
The pace is a good point, and this is where I have to talk about a limitation a little bit.
Mhm.
He's well behind, like pace, similar to Harper. He's well behind in the handle though. Like
Yeah,
that's what
agree.
makes Harper so special. Is
Agreed.
Harper he can go quite a few different speeds, and he has a lot in his toolkit. It helps him navigate like incredibly tight college spaces. Uh Traore though, I believe in the foundation of it. The thing that makes me wonder is if that handle doesn't come all the way around and you have to start looking at him like, could you be a two?
Mhm.
Could you play maybe like two guards on the floor at once? I'm not certain of that. And that's also, but that represents like, that's why another tick in his favor relative to somebody like Fears. That's a tick in Jaku's favor, right? That'll be a tick in Demin's favor. Is like if you want multiple ball handlers on the floor, these guys potentially could grow into somebody you play at the two.
Mhm.
And Traore, I think there's potential for it. I just don't know if it's super likely. I do wonder about
Yeah.
the two guard stuff, especially since the defense. Where do you sit on his defense? I guess
The
is
the defense isn't good. It's with European tape, like it's hard to gauge because especially as a guard and being 18 years old, like
yeah,
he's dying on every ball screen because there's a 35-year-old man that smokes like
an
six.
Australian
Yeah,
bastard of a
he
man.
smokes 8 cigarettes a day, and
Yeah,
he's blowing him up on tons of plays, and, like, even when he moves well, like, he doesn't have the strength to hold up on drives. He's getting blown up as guys are getting downhill. I do think he has, like, some off-ball instincts, and he creates, like, some plays in that sort of sense, but, like, the defensive tape is tough, but it's not like Fears is any better at that stuff.
yeah. And like truthfully, it's not just about Fears and like I keep
Yeah, of
making that
course.
comparison. It's not just about them head to head, but yeah, I like this is not a super strong point guard draft. I don't think. A lot of the guys who like Demon had a lot of buzz coming out of
Yeah,
Real Madrid
early.
and then taking the NIL bag to BYU, and then his shot making did not hold up.
Mhm.
The playmaking is obviously really high level. We'll get to him soon, but also like Traore is like he was a lot more disappointing at the start of his season in France than people expected. So his dipped a little bit. Like he was talked about, like maybe he could be top five at the start of the
Yeah.
season. And Fears definitely like he gave him. I didn't hear anything about Fears prior
Yeah,
to
he
like
came out of nowhere.
he came out of nowhere. He wasn't one of the names you hear,
Yeah.
but he isn't like a lights out prospect by any means. And then Harper at the top obviously is extremely strong, but this is like a shooting guards draft.
Mhm.
And that's where I think I know Demon. We'll go to him now. He was listed as the highest. I don't know if he's the highest, like the tallest guard they've ever measured, or if it was point guard. I'm not exactly sure how they phrased it, but we'll do his measurements. Like Yegor Demin came in at 6'8" and a quarter without shoes. Without
Yeah,
shoes.
the big boy.
Yeah. His wingspan is 6'10" and a quarter. So it's marginally positive. It's nothing crazy. Jacoby Walter has like a 6'10" and a quarter wingspan, I'm pretty sure, at 6'4". And Demon's standing reach is 8'9" and a half. So he was listed as the tallest point guard or shooting guard ever measured at the combine. I know that's true. I don't know if that's like being aggregated wrong. I know it's true for point guard at least. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if it's for shooting guard as well, but he's huge.
Mhm.
He is, however, 199 pounds. He's pretty slight.
Yeah.
Pretty slight. The numbers: 10.6 points per game, 5.5 assists, 3.9 rebounds, 41.2% from the field, 27.3% from three. A lot of room for improvement. I guess the quick thing,
Mhm.
I believe in his jumper.
Oh,
Every prospect we talked about today, I believe in the jumper. Demon, I think he just has to like connect his lower half to his upper half. It's
yeah.
kind of truncated sometimes.
Yeah,
Up
he's
top,
very.
go ahead.
That's what I wrote down. Very upright, like ball handler,
Yeah.
which makes it
Is
tough.
And but that's the thing too, is like them, and I believe in the shooting, but do I believe in the athleticism? Like, he plays with control. He certainly does. I think he's stronger in the middle of the floor than Traore is. I think he's stronger in
Mhm.
the middle of the floor than Fears is. I think he's quite strong in the middle of the floor. Against college, is he commanded that part of the floor, and he's very comfortable with his pickups. He's very comfortable with a live dribble. He keeps it alive, like he's looking to make plays. The thing that really held him back, obviously, is his shooting and the finishing. And it's just like, not everything can be craft and like, ooh, in the middle of the floor. Like, there's got to be a little bit of punch there. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. That's like one of the biggest takeaways from like the playoffs. Like Ty Jerome, bless his heart, like really turned around his career, but like you can't craft and wiggle your way to the rim. Like guys are fighting over screens. They're
You
going to
you can't
contest your
you can't
floater.
twerk in the lane, buddy. It's not allowed.
Like that type of play style is hard to really do in the playoff. Like Luka Doncic does it really well, but he also is like humongous for his size, and he can throw it just as much as like people take it. Um, but I think
As,
with
wait, as a quick note too, like when I'm highlighting Demon's finishing, the finishing is well enough on its own when he gets there. I'm more hesitant about the volume, I should say.
he's very selective driver.
Yeah.
That's fair. I think with Demon, I'm probably lower on than consensus. Um, I do think he's actually one of the best passers in the draft. I'm not
Agreed.
convinced that he's a guard though. One, just because of like the limited handle, like very upright ball handler. A lot of his possessions is a high pick and roll, so he can get downhill, get wind, and then make decisions because of that high pickup point where he dribbles, and then also like as an athlete, I don't see it popping at the NBA level. If it's average, I think he has a chance to be successful. But I think, and especially during his conference play, when they played Baylor, and that was the inflection point where like, oh, this guy could be a top 5 pick.
Mm-hmm.
He could not. BJ Edgecombe is a high plane, obviously, but you saw the level, you saw the athletic difference, and Baylor really bothered him, and he got to a point where he was getting his pick and roll ball handling possessions, but he's then once he gets to the middle floor has to pick up the ball because he can't get any further because he's facing really good athletes, and in the NBA, all of those guys are really good athletes. So if he's at a point where he's picking up the ball in a lot of these possessions, he either A is going to have really really exceptional touch from
Yep.
from short mid range or his floater, or he expands out his range for like from 3 and becomes a wing. I think that is more likely. I think he has a chance to probably do that and then run side pick and roll ball handling possessions because I don't see him getting down to the floor, like being able being able to absorb contact. He shied away from that quite a lot at the college level. And as a high level point guard, you need to be able to do some of those things. Like if he shoots, like he can overcome a lot of like Tyrese Halliburton overcame everything, every limitation that he had because he's one of the best shooters we've ever seen. And he can get to the rim at will. It's hard for me to say that Egor Demin is going to do those things.
He also like Tyrese gets lower than he's older.
Yeah.
He's been able to work on it, but Demon, the potential that I see is like maybe he becomes like a really good pull up shooter or something like that
Mm,
because I don't know if you noticed this too. He is a cheater when he dribbles. He
mm.
palms the hell out of it.
Oh yeah.
He
So
slings and plays with it,
yeah,
which is a really good indicator for me because nobody calls that.
yeah,
Like nobody is going to call that, so you may as well do it, and you really can like cheat like the guards who do it like you've had this before, but when you go play like a college guard at
yeah.
pickup, they'll do it all the live long day and you're like, damn, nobody. And what are you going to say? Like, don't do that. And that's what everyone does. Like the further you go up, the more people are going to have the ability and the hand size to manipulate with the live ball to like
Mhm.
balance on that knife's edge of like carry, not carry. Demon does that. And that also opens up like a lot of opportunity for him to manipulate pickup points
Yeah.
with a pull and to get people to bite so that he can take his slower feet and his larger size into the lane where he can do damage. Uh, that is something that I think is a huge, huge thing for him. Although when I say I believe in the shot, I definitely believe in it as like a catch and shoot option and like a lower end pull up option. But as far as like a high volume pull up guy, I'm not certain of
Yeah.
that. And yeah, and defensively, there's a huge problem. If he is a wing, then it's like he's probably going to have a tough time. Whereas if he's
Mm.
a guard, at least what you can do is position him as like, okay, maybe he doesn't guard point guards. We put him on the weakest wing, the weakest player 2 through 4 on the
Yeah.
other end. And maybe even in some cases, you could throw him on a 5, right? Uh, and you could hide him, but if he's starting out like, I can't guard wings, I can't guard guards, I can't do any of it, then
Yeah.
it's like maybe it gets a little bit difficult.
Yeah. That makes it tough. I think for me personally, he's on like my do not draft list, at least for 9.
Mm,
It it's tough to fit him in like within the context of the team. Like you really have to have a plan for him and be able to like stomach some of the minutes that he has. Because if you're committed to him being a point guard, like NBAs are going to a guy with a high pickup point like that. NBA teams are going to try to trap him and make him pick up the ball or try to create turnovers in that sense. And that's some of the stuff that
Jamal Shed at practice, he's gonna
yeah,
try and pluck him every time down the court. Yeah,
every single time. And that makes it hard. And I think his upside is like being a point guard, being able to get downhill, being a
yeah,
creator
totally.
and manifesting really, really good offense. I I just have a hard time because the burst isn't necessarily there, and he doesn't have the same size as some of those slower guards that still able to get to the floor, like Luka Doncic, for example, have requisite size that can still bully their way to those points. He doesn't have the same size or the same like strength to get to some of those spots. Um, I think a lot of the like live ball stuff is him being able to see over the defense and
Yep.
then make plays in that sort of sense. But like it's not 2016. Like teams are zoning up that weak side and they create tons of turnovers. So like being able to be a high level skip passer, I don't think is as valuable as it was
No.
like maybe even like 2 years ago.
And like even if like let's say like what is the advantage of a big playmaker? Obviously it's the ability to see over the defense,
Yeah.
which elevates you obviously with the skip pass, reading the weak side zone slash the
Mhm.
low man, the tagger, like
Yeah.
depends on how the defense is guarding it, or if they play super aggressive on you to see over the top and make direct reads to your big for 4-on-3 situations. Like that's really valuable, but I don't think he'll have enough pop on ball to generate like these aggressive coverages. I think what is likely is that he could end up being a guy who gets a wide variety of players switched out on him. and that, it just he has to move the ball on. Like there's a real potential for that. And yeah, because you have to provide danger. Like
Mhm.
Tyrese Halliburton, the fact that we talked about his athletic limitations, the fact that like in game 5, he just shredded guys out on the perimeter with his jumper.
Yeah.
Jared Allen, a sidestep three over him after the Pacers ran 3 actions in a row to bring the Cavs bigs out. And when they flattened out, like Tyrese has been working on his pickup points,
Yep.
and Tyrese does get lower and is like a little bit more explosive that he
Mhm.
can pick up and go directly to the front of the rim. But Tyrese is an all NBA player. He's older. It's just Demon makes me worry about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And but there's stuff to like because of course there is. But I worry. I worry.
Yeah, I think he's one of the guys where like I think it would have been better for him to stay in school, honestly, and get
Mm,
more reps going downhill, going against defenses because like in college, like he's the opposing like big is probably the same size as him, even maybe like a little smaller.
yeah.
So like he would have had more opportunity to get more reps at trying to be like that downhill threat. At the NBA, like it's an athletic 7 footer, which is going to be like a big steep and big jump in terms of like athleticism from what he played at BYU and then also size. So he doesn't have the necessarily like same advantages. I think in like even in like a trade back scenario, you can maybe win yourself over on like we're gonna throw him in the G. This is a project pick, and we're gonna allow him to try to be this downhill threat for 50 games in the G and see what he can do.
Yeah. I'm not like it just this is how it is you can
Yeah,
definitely hear it in our coverage is like some guys, and this is how it is for NBA teams,
yeah,
this is how it is for scouts, this is how it is for guys who do this for podcasts. This is just like some guys you just watch and you're like, I don't think so, maybe, and he could prove us wrong, but
100%.
I don't particularly see it with Demon, and
Yeah,
it sounds like you don't either. But of course, like we have a diversity of thought here. Jeremiah Fears is a good example of that.
yeah,
Uh, is there anybody else? Are there names, like not for this podcast, but
yeah.
guys that we should be looking forward to? Because obviously, eh, I don't know if you noticed, but when it was announced that Dallas had the first pick, do
Mm.
you remember the conversation we were having? You had just challenged my idea that CMB could
Oh
score,
yeah.
and I was ramping up to make my
Oh yeah.
case. I was ramping up to make my case, and then S said Dallas won the lottery, and then obviously we had to
Yeah,
react to that. You and I have to, like, we have to have a real meat and potatoes CMB versus Queen argument, I think.
we do. I think that's necessary.
Yep.
Okay. Hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
Also, they're second round guys. I'll say
Yeah.
like I that front of mind coming into this was focus on the Raptors, who could have potentially had one of their highest picks ever. It didn't turn out that way, but we have to like. There's guys like Noah.
Yeah.
We've talked about Asa Newell, who it wouldn't be my selection at 9. I don't think
Yeah.
we've talked about. We have guys we have to talk about still, but Yaxel, early second rounder, if he were there,
Oh yeah.
whoo, and I really.
You're shedding tears. It's one of the reasons why like and I don't think he'll be able to shoot like Carter Bryant, but like you could make up, especially the play finishing on defensive impact. You can make it up in the aggregate in the second round, or even like trading up. Like the Raptors have like a gluttony of players like now, where like if they like a guy, like you can trade up in the 20s, and maybe if they decide like Ochai Abaji they don't want to re-sign because of like their cap constraints, you can strap him and someone else on. Like a good team is going would probably trade for him at 21, and then
That's a good point.
you can go get Yak. So you can go get a player that you really really like and covet, and balance out your cap sheet. Like they're really positioned well to like get a couple guys that they really like.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think like Ochai, maybe it wouldn't be on his own, but if there's a
Yeah,
team that's like between like like 19 and 25.
Yeah,
That's like we want a ninth man, like
yeah,
for the regular season and potentially the playoffs. And Ochai Abaji is that guy. You package Ochai plus your second,
mhm,
and maybe you're there.
yeah.
Like it's
I
I
think
guess it's literally the same as the Thad Young trade. Basically, is the Raptors there? Yeah, there's definitely potential for something like that. Even that we don't have to walk through all of them, but there's quite a few players on the Raptors roster who could go. Like they're not
mhm,
married to a vast array of them, so there's potential here for sure.
yeah. So overall, like after the pain and sadness of seeing Dallas prosper, like I think they'll be able to get two really good players, and like even at 9, like appears like Derek Queen like doesn't like taxes, but like if he falls to 9. That was as good as like for me personally. We jumped up to 4 or 5, honestly. So
Well, Brandon Ingram has that Bernie sticker on his phone. Maybe he can. Maybe he'll have some. Maybe he'll be like, "Let me put you on game, youngin," or
yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
that's
Derek, he he's a cool player.
yes,
I'm definitely not all the way in that you are, but
yeah,
you can't sit and be like, he's all right. It's like, nah, he's cool.
yeah.
He's definitely cool.
He was a player like if I'm in the Raptors room, like I'm banging the table and trying to pick him.
Yeah.
Um, I think what was interesting actually coming out of the combine, they Jeremiah Fears was interviewed and he said the Raptors are looking for very specific things. What do you think those things are?
I think what I that says to me
Yeah.
is that the Raptors were poking holes in Fear's game
Mm.
and doing so politically. Like, we're looking for this. They're basically highlighting that kind of stuff. That's what I think. I also know that
That
the
makes
Raptors, like, there was Fears and Jaku are very different players,
yeah.
and I know that the Raptors were like in on Jaku, and they were like, "What?" So maybe it's something like that.
Yeah.
I th- I would be surprised if the Raptors took Fears. I would be surprised.
Yeah. Offensive fit, like it's a challenge because the Raptors
Well,
don't like
defensive fit as well. I mean,
yeah, he's not a good defender. Because you have to invest in like being like a heavy pick and roll ball handling team, and like in the traditional sense, and the Raptors like don't play the traditional sense. But can a team with the worst ball with the worst dribble penetration in the NBA stick their
Y-
nose up at Jeremiah Fears? I
dude,
don't think so.
you have to be so out on Emmanuel Quickly to start have a wandering eye for Jeremiah Fears. I think. Do you know what I mean? Like, because
I can see that. Yeah,
you can't play those guys together.
you
One,
cannot. Yeah,
and because one Quickly doesn't play well enough off ball. Maybe he'll at 26 years old he'll start to change that, but he just flat out does not. And like, while Fears as a prospect, there's things you can dream on. It's like, well, Quickly has he has skill set to make things happen on ball. It just hasn't he hasn't read the floor well enough. But it's like, you if I'm the Raptors and I'm thinking like, okay, Jeremiah Fears versus Emmanuel Quickly, I have to go with Quickly because I traded for that guy and I
yeah.
paid that guy and I have to believe in something.
Yeah, it's tough. You already paid him, but like, has Emmanuel quickly like earned that favor from Masai Ujiri that they can't draft
Masai
someone similar?
Masai offers no favors.
Yeah,
Is
that
is
is
a
a
is a
fact.
good is a good point. They're
Yeah,
like like Mobo had a worse year than Masai was expecting, and Masai was like he was so in on Jacoby the way he
mm,
talked about him, but he was at his last availability, like kind of, and we'll see about Mobo. Like he had
yeah,
all in 1 year had already gone from we're so excited to get this guy with the 31st overall pick to like we'll see because Mobo did disappoint,
yeah,
offensively, which we got a little bit of blowback for talking about. That was I can't remember if it was the top voted comment, but it was saying, they couldn't believe that we talked about like the things that are necessary in the playoffs
yeah.
without
Oh
bringing up
yes,
what
is
without bringing up what Mobile provides. And while that is true, like Mobile is that stuff, Mobile was also what we talked about, which is you can't have a guy who can't do anything offensively on the floor. You just can't.
yeah,
It just Mobo isn't even in the discussion until he improves at things offensively. Like, and I hope he does, because again, Mobo guy,
Yeah,
people poke fun
I
at me
was
all
too.
year. People poke fun at me all year because I was like, Mobo, I like him. But he really, before we even begin to think about him playing in like a hot and heavy playoff series, is like things have to happen offensively. Like
Yeah,
he would crater like a playoff offense right now, would absolutely just tear it apart.
yeah,
So that's why, although we've talked about all the things that Mobo is good at, and I'm excited for what it potentially could be, but it's got to happen, man. We got
it
to see
is.
it. But
And
yeah, Masai has no loyalty, and
and
you're not supposed to necessarily.
yeah, and the Raptors are in a spot where they they let me rephrase. They might not have too many good players, but they have a lot of players that you want to see play. And
Yep,
like
that's a
if
great turn of phrase, by the way.
so like they're in a position like to outside of like obviously they do make a decision on like their core guys, but even like the guys on the bench, you can package a couple of those guys and fit certain archetypes or certain type of players you want to see or move up in the draft. Like they have so much flexibility heading into this draft and like forming the team how they want, or even heading into the deadline. So like
Yep.
I don't think they'll even feel the need to make any favors. Like if you draft Yaxel at 39, you're not saying how are him and Mobo ever gonna play together. Like one of those guys are gonna beat out the other, and the other
Yep.
guy is probably
It's
gonna
not a
get
bad
traded.
thing.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not
not
a
a bad
it's
thing.
not a bad thing. I mean, and like not making it with the Raptors is not a death sentence,
Yep.
because guys have gone on from the Raptors to other things. And guys, we talked about Ty Jerome. Like he lost money this playoff series, but he's still going to get paid.
Yeah.
Isaiah Joe bounced around, found a spot. Jalen Williams, he probably got drafted to the perfect team.
Mhm.
With the Y, bigger Jalen Williams. Like
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of NBA teams that he wouldn't have made sense for, but he makes sense on. He was playing in the fourth quarter of a game 5 against the
Yeah.
Nuggets. And that's a guy who's extremely limited, but like it made sense and it makes sense. I mean, Brandon Carlson is on that team, for Christ's sake. Like Brandon
That's
Carlson
true.
is out there, dude. So yeah. But the Raptors is like, you just got to figure out who works for you. And even that relates to, like, again, this is a big time Grady podcast. We like Grady a lot, but Grady has more of the
Mhm.
buzz. If the Raptors decide, and whether it's right or wrong, if you're a team or an front office that says like, we actually really believe in Jacoby's offensive upside, then it would make sense to move off of Grady, probably.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't believe in Jacoby's offensive upside that much, then it makes quite a lot of sense to keep Grady and play those two guys together. But it's like you're always trying to capitalize on like who's popular around the league, who has good pub. Is Grady seen as like an up and coming scorer around the league? Is Jacoby probably is hardly even seen around the league at this point. Like it's
Mhm.
always matching that stuff up. Is Quickley seen as better than RJ right now? What is the in-house thoughts on that? The how the team fits together. Like there's a million things. It's not an easy job. It is handsomely paid though, and that's why we critique it.
Yeah.
Uh, that feels like a draft podcast, yeah.
No, it's honestly going from potentially number 1 to 9 probably is better for us. There's more guys for us to talk about. We have the entire draft now that we can look at, and it's like there's a few second round guys that I'm going to start looking into, and like
Mhm.
looking through the comments, like a ton of people were asking for us to look at Rasheer Fleming. So
Yeah.
that's probably one of
Well,
the next guys we should look
he
at.
and he and Carter
Yes,
occupy some similar things, I think.
exactly.
Also, Thero, we talked about. I do Thero. He
Hmm.
could be a second round option as well. I don't really
Yep.
know how his. I think at the time I said I expected him to test out better in the combine and maybe rise up a little bit, which is still very much in play. But like that's another guy to think about for second rounders. But yeah, and also like realistic, like we were very dramatic for the draft combine. It's certainly it was good podcast watching, but truthfully, like the Raptors had 0% chance to jump to 5 or 6.
Yeah.
They were more than likely going to be at 7 or 8. And the draft is, quite frankly, extremely flat 5 through 12.
Yeah,
So
100%.
9 and 7, like, would it have been great to make that leap into the top 4? Obviously, yes. Is it heartbreaking that they were one number off of the top 2 picks? Yeah, it's a gut punch. It is
Yep.
what it is. But 9 is not disastrous relative to 7. It was just I was so pissed that Dallas jumped. I was like, no way it's these bastards get
The,
anyway.
the NBA is more scripted than WWE. I'll tell you that.
And next week, actually, you and I will have to you got to teach me something else about wrestling.
Mm.
That
Oh
was
yes.
I think Caitlin and I are gonna have Blake on the podcast to explain Tyrese versus Jalen in the ring for a fun little thing.
Yes.
And but I need you to teach me some other things too, so we can keep up with it, especially since we're learning it's just two scripted sports.
So in the comments, if there's any specific your favorite wrestling moment, I will reenact this for Samson.
Excellent. All right. Anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Like Masai said, like we're gonna be fine. No, number 9 is gonna
He
produce
has
a
been
Hall of
doing a lot of consoling the last few years, man. He has said, "Trust me," on a lot of things, man.
we're gonna be fine. Every time we've gotten this pick, Hall of Fame stuff has happened. So I expect nothing less.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I forgot to say like, comment, subscribe at the
Oh,
top. If you're listening now, please do so. It helps the podcast a bunch. Uh, thanks for tuning in with us, whether you got into this in the morning or at night. From myself and Trey, have a blessed day and goodbye.